what's going on. Did you see what's going on? Obviously, you've seen what's going on in California. But the governor gave this creeping speech where he was talking about speculators coming in and talking about what to do with the land of all these homes that have been burnt down while it's still only 6% contained. And he did this little dance like, I've been talking with these, with the governor of Hawaii about what to do. We got some ideas of speculators.
I mean, I've got questions, sir. I don't find you to be a truth teller. Based on a long, long history.
Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly just unleashed a tag team takedown on Gavin Newsom so brutal it left no hair gel untouched. Rogan hit with raw disbelief and savage humor, torching Newsom's hypocrisy and Hollywood-style governance. Kelly followed with razor-sharp precision, dismantling his record like a prosecutor at closing arguments. From pandemic failures to ideological chaos in classrooms, they exposed Newsom as the king of style over substance. So if smug ambition had a face, they just lit it up on national display.
Down in Hawaii, you had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in, buying up properties, and the like. So we're already working with our legal teams to move those things forward, and we'll be presenting those in a matter of days, not just weeks.
With a big smile on his face. Look at the little wiggle he does with his shoulders. Speculator, watch this. Talking to Josh. Look at this. Look at this little wiggle. It's excited about the possibilities of speculators coming in. And he's saying we're move forward. We're going to move forward on that. These people lost their homes. A lot of those people don't even have fire insurance because the fire insurance pulled out.
He had no dignity. That's what I was missing. There was no dignity. It just looked like a man desperate for attention. And whenever DeSantis was scoring points on him, he would interrupt over and over to try to talk over the points as just that's like a middle school debate tactic, which is pathetic. And
Joe Rogan leaned forward in his studio chair like a man who just saw a UFO land in his backyard. And the pilot stepped out wearing a suit slicker than reality. Gavin Newsom. That name alone was enough to make Rogan shake his head with a look that screamed disbelief, mixed with caffeine. There was no need for a warm-up. Just the mention of California's governor sent him straight into a full-on breakdown of what he called one of the most performative public figures in modern politics.
To these illegals who are now getting Medicaid in California. Thanks to him. Illegals. So this guy's priorities are not with keeping people safe at all. He doesn't care about the crime, about the illegals, and obviously not about the fires, which after the fact, again, hey, sure, so could somebody let me know how that happened?
He started with the obvious, the hair.
The hair. Rogan laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was too perfect. He said Newsom's hair looked like it was sealed in place with industrial-grade gel and presidential ambition. He joked that if you dropped the governor in a hurricane, everything around him would collapse, but that hair would remain flawless, like it had diplomatic immunity. The hair wasn't just a cosmetic choice. It was a metaphor for the man, polished, sculpted, untouched by chaos, and completely detached from the actual weather.
President Newsom either. Nobody believes in that guy. That guy's a con man. Everything he did in California, from trying to mandate vaccines for kids to being caught public without a mask and lying about the fact that he was outdoors.
Yeah.
Nobody believes in that guy. He's just a politician, just a stone cold, narrative driven politician. Nobody thinks he's a real human. Whether you like Trump or not, whether you think he's corrupt or not, that's a human being. You know what that guy is. Same thing with RFK Jr. Whether you believe that he's correct about vaccines or whether you believe his policies would be effective, and that's a human being.
Then came the pandemic. Rogan's tone shifted, now seasoned with that kind of outrage only hypocrisy can deliver. He laid into Newsom's lockdown logic like a surgeon with a bone to pick. In one breath, Newsom was demanding strict stay-at-home orders, shuttering businesses, closing schools, and canceling church services. In the next, he was caught dining maskless at a high-end restaurant, enjoying wine with lobbyists while the rest of California was eating cold leftovers on Zoom. Rogan painted the image like a dystopian sketch comedy show, the king feasting in a tower while the peasants are told to microwave hope and wash their hands with tears.
We begin with California Governor Gavin Newsom, who spent the weekend trying to avoid responsibility as the fires were still burning by dropping by the Pod Save America podcast for an attempt to clean up his own image?
I want to know the answers. So I'm the governor of California. I want to know the answer. I've got that question. I can't tell you about how many people, what happened. My own team saying what happened. And I want to get the answers. And
He mocked the logic behind shutting down beaches and outdoor gyms, as if fresh air were somehow a biological weapon. Rogan said it felt like Newsom was less concerned about science and more obsessed with optics. If it looked like leadership sounded like leadership and got a round of applause on Twitter, then it passed the Gavin test. Meanwhile, people were losing their livelihoods, kids were falling behind in school, and mental health was spiraling. But at least Newsom had a nice press conference backdrop.
What Gavin Newsom said to him?
No.
Gavin Newsom said that you shouldn't be posting this. That we're going to make it illegal. And I'm going to sign a law. And he said, Professor, suck on these nuts.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did. Elon retweets altered Kamala Harris campaign. Says manipulating voices in an ad like this should be illegal. I'll be signing a bill in a matter of weeks to make sure it is. And then he says on a I checked with renowned world authority, Professor, suck on these nuts. And he said parody is legal in America.
Oh my God.
What a wild dude.
Wow.
What a wild dude. Because he's not scared of those folks.
Then Rogan tackled California's homelessness crisis. He shook his head like a man trying to solve a riddle written by lunatics. Tents, needles, and human waste blanketed major cities like a dark parody of progress. Yet Newsom kept insisting the situation was improving. Rogan questioned why billions had been spent while the streets still looked like Mad Max with compost bins. He argued it wasn't compassion that let people rot on sidewalks. It was incompetence, wearing a mask of empathy. And Gavin Newsom, he claimed, was the lead actor in the longest-running failure theater in America. Rogan then launched into Newsom's environmental hypocrisy. The same guy who lectured the nation about green energy was jetting around the country, appearing at climate summits like he was hosting the Eco-Oscars. Rogan said it was rich watching someone warn about rising sea levels while expanding beachfront mansions and building policy on a foundation of wishful thinking.
Was basically almost burned alive. The governor of California. Take a listen.
We went up to one of the canyons on the fire, sitting there feeling we're a good quarter mile away. I'm not making this up, video to bear it out. All of a sudden, we see an ember, hits the tree goes on fire, 100 seconds. God is my witness, may have been 90 seconds. The house is in flames. I have embers of flames. They're taking it off my hair, and we're running back into the car. Winds are swirling around. Garbage cans were in the air, and we were getting the hell out of there.
Okay, why is he saying his God is my witness and I'm not making this up before he tells the story? Truly, like...
Newsom was basically almost burned alive. The governor of California. Take a listen. We went up to one of the canyons near the fire. I'm sitting there, feeling like we're good, a quarter mile away. I'm not making this up. There's video to bear it out. All of a sudden, we see an ember hit a tree. The tree catches fire. Within 100 seconds, God is my witness, maybe even 90 seconds, the house is in flames. I have embers, flames, they're taking it off my hair. We're running back to the car. Winds are swirling. Garbage cans are flying through the air. And we're getting the hell out of there. Okay, but why is he saying God is my witness and I'm not making this up before he even tells the story? It sounds like he's trying to convince you of something before you've even questioned it. Like he knows it's too dramatic to be fully believable.
Talking to local leaders, saying what's going on. Our state,
and you weren't getting straight answers from
I was getting
leaders.
different answers. When you start getting different answers, then I'm not getting the actual story.
So you decided the thing to do would be to go on Pod Save America to talk about it because it's in the end, it's all about you. This is another David Muir, folks. He is just as vain and worried about his image in the middle of this emergency as David Muir with his little fake fireman's jacket and clothespins.
He painted Newsom as a walking contradiction, constantly posing for photo ops next to solar panels while his own state suffered from blackouts, droughts, and policies so confusing even Tesla gave up and moved to Texas. And, oh, how Rogan loved that part. He listed the businesses fleeing California like it was a final roll call. Tesla, Oracle, Hewlett-Packard, all gone. Rogan said it was like watching the smart kids leave the party while Gavin played DJ at a prom no one wanted to attend. He mocked Newsom for treating California like a utopia when it had become a cautionary tale with palm trees. Then he went in on taxes. Rogan couldn't understand how a state with the highest taxes still had some of the worst infrastructure, potholes, power outages, water restrictions. It was like paying for VIP and getting the alley entrance. He joked that Californians were paying luxury prices for a government that functioned like a discount app run by philosophy majors.
I addressed Gavin Newsom personally. He follows me, so I tagged him. And I'm going to be honest, I begged him to please stop this for all the reasons stated on our YouTube feed. And he didn't get back to me. But I think I was shooting at the wrong public official who...
And just when you thought he was done, Rogan dove into the social policies. He criticized the classroom agendas, the redefinition of basic terms, and the criminal justice experiments that turned shoplifting into a hobby. He said it felt like California was being governed by a think tank of over-caffeinated TikTok influencers, with Gavin Newsom acting as their overconfident spokesperson. That patronizing, polished cadence made Newsom sound like he was auditioning to narrate a luxury car commercial. Rogan said Newsom didn't speak to the people, he lectured them. Everything he said dripped with a self-congratulatory charm that could only come from someone who hadn't filled their own gas tank in a decade. Megyn Kelly then stepped in and compared listening to Newsom to sitting through a motivational seminar led by someone who thought slogans were solutions and smugness was a virtue. She dissected his obsession with image, saying Gavin was less a governor and more a living campaign poster. Every move, every speech, every gesture was designed for optics. The problem, she argued, was that while Newsom mastered the politics of appearance, he failed at the politics of substance. California wasn't thriving. It was surviving despite him.
Not be exempt from the law, the spokesperson also did not acclaim the Bloomberg piece, which cited sources close to the matter that Newsom pushed for an exemption that applies to businesses that bake bread and sell it as a standalone item, calling the report absurd. So is it a fake story?
Or is it something that they
might have corrected?
hustled?
She then addressed his COVID record, but with a different flavor. Kelly argued that Newsom didn't use the pandemic to protect people. He used it to expand his power and control the narrative. Emergency orders became lifestyle mandates, all while exceptions were carved out for himself and his political allies. She painted a picture of a state where repeat offenders walked free, petty theft became policy, and law enforcement was vilified by politicians who never had to walk the streets they regulated. According to Kelly, Newsom's justice system didn't promote fairness. It encouraged disorder. He wasn't reforming anything. He was unraveling it. She took a scalpel to his public safety stance, his education policies, and his laughable housing plans. Each section of her roast landed like a case file, presented with facts, precision, and a tone that made it clear Gavin Newsom wouldn't last 5 minutes under real media scrutiny. She called him the media's favorite child, not because he was effective, but because he checked the right ideological boxes.
He got out there with his bazooka and was like, I solved this problem, and you governors better freaking go along or you're gonna get it. And I'm not kidding around. I'll read you what he posted. Stand by. It's amazing. Okay, he posts the following. California, under the leadership of radical left Democrat Gavin Newsom, continues to illegally allow men to play in women.
And she didn't stop there. Kelly called out Newsom's grandstanding on national issues, his habit of dragging Florida and Texas into every speech like a deflective tick. Instead of fixing California, she argued, he spent his time tweeting about other states, trying to draw contrast while ignoring his own implosions. It was less governance and more influencer behavior. And Gavin, she insisted, was an actor through and through. Kelly even mocked his awkward attempts to connect with voters, claiming he couldn't relate to average Americans even if he were dropped in the middle of a diner with a map and instructions. His bubble, she said, was so thick he probably thought gas prices were still printed in magazines. Every policy, every soundbite, it all came from a worldview manufactured in think tanks and filtered through media handlers. Her conclusion was brutal. Gavin Newsom wasn't dangerous because he was malicious. He was dangerous because he believed his own press. He believed that style could replace substance, that applause meant approval, and that photo ops meant progress. He was the embodiment of political narcissism, she said, packaged and sold as a solution.
The important thing is, how is his hair? Did it or did it not have embers in it? And you tell me what the answer is to my question about what the press would be doing to Ron DeSantis if he swung by the Ruthless podcast in the middle of the hurricane. The fires are still burning. There's zero purpose in going on Pod Save America other than to burnish his own image.
And of course, that's all he cares about, right? That's why he tells this harrowing story.
As Rogan and Kelly each put down their verbal torches, one thing was clear. Gavin Newsom wasn't just a governor. He was a symbol. Kelly tore into the myth that California's school system was leading the nation, calling it a slow-moving academic collapse disguised by progressive buzzwords. Under Newsom, she argued classrooms had become ideological battlegrounds where actual learning came second to political theater. Kids couldn't read at grade level, but at least the curriculum was loaded with confusing identity acronyms and lectures about systems they couldn't even spell. She mocked how Gavin touted educational equity while families were fleeing the public school system in droves. Parents don't need equity, she said. They need math. And when they asked for results, all they got in return was a glossy pamphlet about emotional awareness and a property tax increase. Kelly compared it to ordering a steak and being handed a coloring book. Interview. Joe Rogan picked it back up, doubling down on Newsom's flair for marketing failure as visionary leadership. He laughed at how every new disaster in California came with a new slogan, like Gavin was branding collapse for Instagram likes. Power outages were called energy transitions. Crime surges were labeled justice reform. Tax hikes? Investment in the future. Rogan said only Newsom could preside over rolling blackouts and still smile like he was announcing a theme park. And then he added, the real punchline is that Gavin Newsom thinks this record qualifies him to run the entire country. Rogan imagined Newsom pitching his presidential campaign to America like a guy selling timeshares in a hurricane zone, flashing that rehearsed grin, waving his hands through smoke and gridlock, and promising to do for the nation what he's done for California. Rogan shook his head and said, if that doesn't terrify people, nothing will.